So, not long ago I discovered one of my favorite games of all time. Lies of P may seem like a typical Souls-like, but it quickly reveals itself as something very different. While most Soulsborne games bury their lore in item descriptions and cryptic hints, Lies of P places its story front and center. It not only accompanies the gameplay, but completely drives the game. Beneath its twisted fairy tale exterior lies a tale deeply concerned with free will and what it means to become human. In this video I'll explore how the game uses its narrative not just as background but as the driving force of the experience. Through the lens of morality, freedom, and intertextuality, I'll examine how Lies of P reshapes a classic children's tale into a bleak philosophical journey through a world where the line between human and puppet is not all that clear. In order to take a look at how brilliant this game is, we need to start from the original Pinocchio. The story itself has been retold many times. It seems to be infinitely malleable. It's a base that can fit many different narratives, even if the original story by Collodi didn't put much emphasis on that. Even so, we could take away some core themes that generally follow it. The first theme being moral development. Pinocchio's almost always starts as a disobedient puppet, making the morally bad choice in almost every situation. Becoming human to him means developing a moral compass, which is often portrayed through obedience. This makes sense being a children's book. The blue fairy and Jiminy Cricket often represent his good conscience, guiding him towards the ethical choices. That leads us to lying. Even though not represented as much in the original, it has become a staple for Pinocchio. Lying takes a material form and becomes part of him, implying that lying, no matter how, eventually leaves a mark on you as a person as well. There is no deception without self-deception and damage to trust. Pinocchio's nose becomes a public display of his own dishonesty, further revealing that he is not to be trusted the more he lies. Another core theme is identity and free will. Pinocchio is a puppet that wants to become a human. Naturally, that leads us to ask, what does it mean to become a human? For him, that mostly takes the form of moral development, but that itself can be interpreted in many ways, as we will see. On the other hand, Pinocchio is both a son and a creation. Geppetto to him can be seen not only as his father, but as his creator or god. Knowing this, the story can become a slippery slope to never-ending questions about free will, religion, and identity, which is part of the reason why so many interpretations are possible. Although knowing there will be spoilers, I assume everyone watching already finished the game, but in order to delve into the world of Lies of P and its own interpretation of Pinocchio, I think it deserves a small introduction first. Crud itself is a twisted representation of Belle Epoque. Many have compared the game to Bloodborne, especially in terms of its aesthetic. The city is shattered by a puppet uprising and a deadly plague. It's powered by Ergo, a mysterious energy source which gives life and eventually consciousness to mechanical puppets. Eventually we learn that it can be compared in many aspects to a soul, as it contains a person's memories. The puppets, originally bound by strict laws to serve humans, have broken free, leading to a violent collapse of society. Beneath the city's elegant, crumbling facade lie secret factions like the alchemists of Hermes, who seek perfection through alchemy and science. The world itself is shaped by people's inability to face trauma in their greed, creating puppets to replace missing human connection, failing to face a world where no one can lie to you, trying to achieve godhood to perfection. Krat, the world of Lies of P itself, is a result of both failure to overcome trauma naturally and eventually failure to overcome it unconventionally. As such, the one who finally brings a semblance of order to it is P, who bears witness to other people's suffering, shows compassion, and wants to overcome his own. Firstly, we can get this out of the way, as some could point out that it's a bit on the nose, or not directly relevant, but as you know, P in this case is a playable character in a video game. Therefore, He is quite literally a puppet controlled by your inputs as a player. Whether you believe in free will or not, I find it beautifully poetic in a way that Pinocchio, no matter what he chooses or how real he becomes, in the end remains controlled by us, lacking free will, which one could argue also makes him human in a way. But in the end, I don't think that is or should be the main point here. We should limit our understanding of the story to simply that. Even though there are multiple endings, as with many other similar games, usually one could be determined by the developer or audience or both to be quote unquote the true ending. And yes, this is still the case with Lies of P. With that in mind, I think we should follow and analyze the story with the true ending in mind, assuming that P does in fact lie in most of the given situations. From that point, I think we should tackle how the game uses and twists the themes from the original text. Firstly, in terms of morality and lying. Pinocchio, as a children's book, has always based obedience as its core value. In Lies of P, however, not everything is black and white. Everyone lies, it's part of being human, and lies, many will agree, can be used for good. Some people may value truth above all else, but some characters themselves know that they prefer hearing a lie rather than the harsh truth.
If I may be frank, this is better than I dared hope. Even if you are telling me a sweet lie, I shall savor it. Thank you.
As such, Pinocchio does lie in those situations. It's a lie based on compassion. What makes him more human with each lie is not simply the action of lying, but the emotions that govern it. That is something Simon Manus himself couldn't understand deeply enough, as lying was a completely different concept to him, being able to read minds, which also drove him to do a lot of the things he did. Aglecino himself also affirms,
So I didn't. I'm not a machine. I have free will. I made a choice in heat of the moment. And it was a choice driven by that most human of emotions. Curiosity.
as a subject, lying itself poses problems even definitionally. For example, the Oxford English Dictionary's definition, to lie is to make a false statement with the intention to deceive. Doesn't cover many scenarios. Like Mahan knows in the definition of lying and deception, there are several problems with this definition. According to it, a person who makes a statement that she believes to be true, a person who makes a truthful statement with the intention to deceive another person is lying if unbeknownst to her the statement is false. There are other examples like the supposed lie that Pete tells to Julian in one of the side quests that his mate Puppet loves him back. At the time, you're led to believe that this is in fact a lie. You're given humanity points, as we noted. Your intentions here is to tell a false statement governed by compassion. Yet, close to the end of the game, we find out that the puppet did in fact love him back. Therefore, the initial statement wasn't a lie. Another example is the lie related to the portrait and beauty of Antonia, who's to say what P said is really a lie, given the subjective nature of the question. It wouldn't be far-fetched to assume that his answer correctly reflects what he thinks.
I'm curious what your young eyes see. Is there any resemblance between me and that portrait? Do I still have It seems Geppetto even taught you good manners. Yes, those beautiful memories are still vivid in my mind. Time. Time and the memories that fill it are all we have.
In short, lying down to its very definition can be very relative. If you want to learn more about definition, I suggest checking out the aforementioned article. As for Lies of P, I think the main takeaway should be that it's not lying in of itself that is important, but the emotions that lead to it. Which leads us to the next subject, free will. Free will in Lies of P is put into question times and times again. It appears blocked by multiple walls that have to be overcome in order to achieve it. At first, puppets face the walls built by the Grand Covenant, the rules by which they are supposed to abide by, and that, as we learn later, essentially enslave them. Even after overcoming that, comes the question of the will of the creator. The puppet, even with the person's memory sealed inside, is an entirely different being to the person that had them. The puppet has a creator, a father. Geppetto, in this case, is a sort of god to P, and like Simon Manos mentions in his confession, allow me, a father is like a god to his son. Even I, Simon, was no different in my youth. But the one who created me was no normal human. You're a failure, too. The ability to read minds. Being abandoned in front of God meant the words destruction. P might have overcome the Grand Covenant, but the word of his father, his creator, his God, telling him to be a good boy, always follows him throughout the story. All the way to the end, or he actually abandons him in attempt to resurrect his son. In the final nail in the coffin, the final sign that P is in fact a real boy is found within being abandoned by his father, by his god, and mourning his passing. As far as the story goes, this final moment shows the peak where P becomes real and fully achieves free will. Even so, the question we have never seemed to fully disappear. Free will is interpreted in several ways within philosophy. Libertarianism holds that free will requires our choices to be undetermined by prior causes. We must have the genuine ability to choose otherwise in the exact same circumstances. In contrast, compatibilism argues that free will can still exist even if determinism is true. What matters is not whether our actions are caused, but whether they reflect our own desires, values, and reasoning without external coercion. A third view, hard determinism, denies free will altogether, claiming that all choices are the inevitable outcome of prior events, leaving no room for moral responsibility. These perspectives offer competing answers to whether and how we can truly be free in a casually determined world. Depending on your definition, it's hard to argue free will even for us. There are many external influences that contribute or fully dictate our actions. Even if P has overcome many obstacles to free will, if his lives are completely governed by his emotions, by Carol's memories, are they truly his? Are they free? On top of that, most things he achieved within the game are possible, even guided by Sophia, her ability to rewind time. The information that she shares with P, what she asks of him, a lot of the events that happened could be attributed to her, up until, of course, when P finally reaches her and is faced with yet another decision. That is not limited to P either. The fox and the cat, although drawn to be the villains at first, seem completely dependable on the supply of golden fruit. The cat, faced with blindness and death, and the fox out of compassion for her brother, what choice do they really have but to comply with whoever can provide them with it? What about Geppetto or Simon Manus? Their actions were clearly caused by their own trauma that left them with a twisted version of the future as the only way to cope. Be it human or puppet, free will is not that easy to grasp. Finally, since the game is dedicated to another work and is full of references, I wanted to talk about intertextuality. Intertextuality is the idea that all texts, books, films, shows, etc. are connected. Every text, reference, echoes, or responds to others in some way. In short, intertextuality means a text is shaped by other texts. It can be through direct quotes, themes, character types, or even subtle allusions and references. I think this contributes to the text in many different ways. For example, it creates deeper meaning. Readers or viewers can get more out of a story if they recognize references to other works. It adds layers of interpretation other than the surface level. The work can be viewed in relation to the work that it's referencing. It helps challenge, reaffirm, or expand on previously developed ideas in other works. It turns passive viewing into active interpretation. It also builds cultural layers. It connects new works to older traditions, genres, and conversations. It engages the audience as people enjoy spotting hidden notes and drawing connections. It shows originality through changing the original meaning. It highlights how creators rework past stories to say something new. This is exactly why I greatly appreciated all the references to other stories that were implemented, and I wanted to point out some of them. For example, Ardechino, his appearance is based on Brow 158 from Pluto. He's the only robot to have ever killed a human. His character also asks profound questions about guilt, programming, free will, and the ethics of sentient machines. A lot of aesthetic and narrative parallels can be drawn. More than just a reference, the entire story, of course, is based on Pinocchio. A lot of the main characters are seen, but the story itself is completely different, as they're more obvious and the game changes their characters to shape its own story. I won't delve too much into each of them. There's also Champion Victor, who represents Frankenstein. The creator of A Monstrous Child parallels Victor Frankenstein's tragic ambition. Like Shelley's novel, Lies of P explores the hubris of creation, especially the consequences of pushing science beyond ethical bounds. Victor in Lies of P is a failed experiment, a human warped by ambition and science, mirroring the tragedy of Frankenstein's creation. The game uses this to question the line between creator and monster and to highlight the dangers of trying to perfect or control life through unnatural means. It's also important to note that the original title of Frankenstein includes the modern Prometheus. Simon Manus, Victor, and Prometheus all search forbidden ways to create life, and for their transgressions they are heavily punished. In the game, we can also see a reference to the picture of Dorian Gray. The golden portrait grows a branch-like nose. Its artist is named D. Gray, a direct nod to Oscar Wilde's novel. In the book, it's the portrait that ages while Dorian Gray remains young, and in the game, it's the portrait that grows a nose when P lies. There's also a nod to Robocop with the scrapped watchman, who is named Murphy, echoing the film's Hero Cop. Like Robocop, he blurs the line between law enforcement and soulless automation. Similarly, inside the machine there are the memories of a human, but is that enough for proper moral guidance? In terms of Venini's background, it mirrors Bruce Wayne in a way. Arlecchino let Venini live out of curiosity. He wondered how he would face his trauma. Like Bruce Wayne, he channels trauma into invention. In the end, Venini's goal is to seek order and prosperity for the city. The parallel is clever. Both characters have a similar background and deal with the burden of legacy in a similar way, once again reminding us of the idea how much external influences shape us. Just like Lies of P borrows its core gameplay mechanics from Souls games, it takes the essence of Carlo Collodi's story, combines it with many others, and creates something completely unique. It's a clear example of how to build upon what was come before you, establish a connection with it, and expand upon it, creating something new and adding depth that couldn't be achieved otherwise.